let's talk about Timmy in this CNN interview that went crazy.
God bless, dude, Timmy.
Yeah, he was cooking.
Did you guys watch the interview?
Yeah, he's fantastic.
He's great. He's great. I thought he handled it really well. These are my least favorite type of interviews.
Yeah.
Where there's a lack of curiosity. I don't like this style of interviewing, which comes off as, again, I can't say like what this person's goal was, but like this style of interviews that I think were popularized, they've been around for a while, don't get me wrong, but where it's like, this is how I feel about the world. And I'm going to ask you questions that will confirm my belief about the world. Instead of, this is how I feel about the world. Am I off for thinking about this? I'm around somebody who like has in-depth knowledge about this stuff. Tell me if maybe I'm wrong, and maybe tell me if I should change my opinion on it. So it's a lack of curiosity. And I think that one of the great things about Joe and one of the great things about podcasting in general is when you kind of decentralize media is you can be curious. You can ask. You can find shit out. Oh, this person thinks the pyramids were built by aliens. Oh, tell me why you think that. This person doesn't think it. He just had the other guy on, the guy from Egypt was it. Tell me why it isn't the case, right? And it's like, and I didn't watch that whole interview. Maybe there's ways that he's giving pushback. But this idea of true curiosity, and I think that's why people tend to move away from traditional media because it didn't feel curious. It felt, this is my opinion on this topic, which just so happens to mirror the opinion of the viewers of the network. And I'm going to bring you on here to either get you to agree with me or humiliate you for not agreeing with me. And Tim is so savvy, he found a way to jujitsu his way out of it and kind of expose the interviewer. But I think this is one of the things that like people as a whole have been rejecting from traditional media. Is a lack of genuine curiosity and it's almost like the interviewer is telling you what you are.
I want to give a little pushback.
Please.
I think there's the place for both of the styles of interviews.
Yeah.
Like I like the way Rogan does, because his is like, he's curious. But like if you go with a journalist who's done their research, if it feels genuine, as long as they're not just like trying to have a moment, like if that's what her views are, and maybe most of the people who watch this channel, they share similar views. I think it's actually good to have the interview from that point of view and then have the person there who can rebut it. It means more. Like I watched that interview, I was like, oh wow, this is good because this girl went in a little bit narrow-minded and Tim was able to like—
That's a great point.
Debunk all those things.
I completely agree. I completely agree with what you're saying. In my point, it's like, if you already feel a way about the world and you don't want to change that feeling, then why are you asking somebody to come on your show? If that person was asking to come on your show so they can shine light on this topic that you may feel differently about, that's a different thing. But if you're requesting an interview with somebody just to prove how you already feel about something, the lack of curiosity, I think, creates this like animosity, too strong a word, but almost like for the audience, like I almost kind of want to reject it. Yeah. Like her first question I thought was really disrespectful. The opening question was, so you just had a comedy special come out. Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, I think on the press run for the comedy special that I just released, I would like to talk about it. That's why I'm here. And then it's like, she goes, okay, give me the short for it. Give me the short of what your special is.
Yeah.
Did you not watch the special? Like, like to me, it's like a disrespect.
Like, let's get this out the way so I can get to what
or do the bare minimum of research of who that person is and why you want to talk to them.
I definitely understand, and I would have taken it that way.
Yeah.
I thought what made Tim so effective is he didn't take anything that way.
Personally, and he did a great job.
To Alex's point, that does give you the opportunity, if you are an adept speaker, especially in that kind of environment, a person who wants to side with her might be like, this guy's actually making a lot of really good fun.
And I think
he ran circles around it.
I think what, to Al's point, it's like, it's great for the viewers, not necessarily maybe her viewers that want to see her opinion, which is also their opinion confirmed, which I think is like an issue with legacy media. It's an issue with like journalism in a lot of ways in terms of like print journalism. It's just like, this is the perspective from this magazine, and we are just going to project that perspective on every different story that we tell. And there's something boring about that. It's like, it's expected. Like, and that's kind of what I didn't like about it. But seeing somebody that's as adept as Tim at like navigating that type of journalism, like he's experienced a lot of it. He's probably watched a lot of it. He also knows comedy way better than she knows comedy.
Yeah.
That's not her field of expertise. He was able to expose her tactics. And I think what ended up going viral was the exposing of her tactics.
Yeah.
You know, her coming in with this idea that there's like no liberal comedian. It's like, they are all liberal.
Yeah.
Like every single one of them is liberal. Like the majority, the vast majority are.
Yeah.
Were they planning on putting the entire interview out in its entirety?
I don't.
No, apparently she asked for that.
Oh,
She
good.
wanted that, which is a testament to her. Good
Tim
for her.
did too.
No, I thought.
I think he forced their hand.
Yeah, I thought they were going to put out an edited version, and Tim was upset.
He went on Rogan and he was like, put the whole thing out.
Yeah.
I think he forced their hand, and then if they didn't, they look fraudulent.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it could be very easy to edit it, chop it up. And
My understanding was she asked for it, so maybe I got that wrong. But I also, the best moment in this clip that went viral is when, I don't know if we want to play it or not, but when he names the left of center comedians, and then he goes Louis C.K., and she goes, and he goes, why? Because he's an imperfect person?
Yeah.
And that is like, oh, that is the entire liberal problem.
he's a weird freak, but he's liberal.
Exactly. That is 1,000%.
And that's
You
okay.
want the
And we're
weird
not
freak
going to
vote?
punish him for the rest of his life
Yeah.
because he's into some weird freak shit.
Yeah, but do you want that vote or not? Or you can't vote for me?
And if
that's why I'll lose.
Exactly. If nobody's, this is a greater discussion. We could even get into like a response from some of our recent interviews, Bernie and Pete. But yeah, I'm curious your guys' take on the Tim interview.
I thought her tactic, the Steel Man and like in good faith, she kind of was just sort of like asking probing questions, had her own agenda. But I also wonder if there's like a style where she comes in so underspoken, like so soft, kind of like leading questions, but not really like staking her position, trying to get him to say something kind of inflammatory or like a soundbite.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't supposed to go out in its entirety, I feel like that was kind of the strategy. It's like,
And then you can edit however you want.
like, do you think that there's right-wing comedians?
Yeah.
And then do you think there's a lot of right-wing comedians in Texas? And like slowly kind of getting it deeper and deeper.
like nudging you in a direction that she wants you to be already.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, an unfair way of having an open conversation with somebody.
But no disrespect, is that anything different than what Club Shay Shay does? And that of
Well, what I would do is call Club Shay Shay a gotcha show.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I've said it here.
I think it's a little different because it seems like Shannon will just be like, so here's a huge controversy you're in. What do you think about it? And he'll just sort of just put it out and then you can deal
That's
with
fair.
it anyway.
Shannon really don't even
Shannon
know.
don't know the fuck
He
is
don't
going
even know
on,
what's
dude.
going on.
So it's just like, you got caught up in this shit. What's your response?
The fact that he played football for as long as he did and can form full sentences with his brain is a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
But with this lady, it seems like there was a lot of stuff she didn't know. Like she was making assumptions, and then Tim was like, "No, what are you talking about?"
Which is the goes to the point that I'm making, which is like you're coming in with assumptions when if there was genuine curiosity and like a good faith conversation, you would just come in not knowing and asking those questions. Like
I noticed a moment where she was like, I've been researching stand-up comedy. Right away, I'm like, all right, well, then you don't research, you don't know. You didn't know it coming in. What did you research? And then when I heard the question she was asking, I was like, I don't think you really did any research. I think you talked to a few comedians that you know, or people who dabbled in comedy. And these guys don't know, dude, there's a, if you ask people who stand-up comics are, they don't often know the people that we think they would know.
also there was a point where I think she was basically trying to get at which like is the mothership a right-wing comedy club or something like that.
That's what she
like,
wanted Tim to say. She wanted to get that out of him, to say like there's a Republican agenda within the podcast establishment at these comedy clubs that pushes this type of rhetoric.
Yeah, and it's just not the case. Now, here's the thing that is true without a doubt is that things trend and comedians gravitate, just like any other person in life, towards their salvation, right? So like crowd work becomes popular. All these comedians just start doing crowd work, right? YouTube specials become popular. All these comedians posting clips become popular. Everybody does it. There is a time right now where like some of the comedians that are seen now as like edgy and dark were doing PG material trying to get on Comedy Central. So now they're kind of edgy dark because that's maybe allowed. Maybe that was always who they were and they just couldn't find success in that because Comedy Central had a stranglehold on like what comedy was. But comedians do gravitate towards what they believe will be successful. There is no top-down influence in the mothership like Joe going, you have to do jokes about this. But there are surely young comedians that think, oh, maybe the way I get on is if I say these things that I hear the popular people in this scene doing. But there's never any, like, Joe likes weirdos. Joe likes misfits. He likes, if you knew Joe's friend group outside of comedy, they're like the most peculiar, like, pool sharks and just random people you'll bump into. He just likes, so there's no pressure ever. But I think that's kind of like what she wanted him to say. But to say that there aren't like trends in certain things, like the alt scene in New York had a specific style of comedy that everybody adopted. Like early, when I was coming up in comedy, and you know, Dave Attell, who's always been like the fixture at the Comedy Cellar, every comedian was doing a Dave Attell impression. And they'll admit this themselves. Like all their act out sounded like Attell, their voices sounded like Attell, their rhythm sounded like Attell. He was so influential that it just kind of trickled down. So there's no question whether that influence exists. But is there like an active push to make people do that? Absolutely not. It's more like, how do I succeed within this system?
And to give her a little grace, maybe she just heard like what you said, and now it's like, oh, I'm assuming that people are being told to, this is the comedy we perform here because I hear that a lot of the young comics who perform here.
She hears a bitter comic who isn't passed at the mothership that says something like, oh, you got to be fucking right wing to get up there. And it's just like, no, you just didn't get passed, and you're trying to find a way to justify you not getting passed outside of you not being funny. But you aren't funny. And there's a lot of people who aren't funny that don't want to just go, maybe I need to get better. Okay, because there's no liberal comedian that's not allowed at the mothership at all. Like, this doesn't even exist. There are unfunny people that aren't allowed there. Absolutely. There are unfunny conservatives and unfunny leftists.
I think she's a political, I don't know this. My feel from the interview is she's like a politically minded person who heard that there is a right-wing podcast faction, and that's why Trump got elected, and we need to go see what's going on with that.
Let's talk about
comic
Optically, it looked like that during the election.
Which is a high.
So she's looking at all these Republicans going on podcasts and being like, well, obviously there's an agenda.
And let's talk about this, because I find this very interesting. I'm not saying this is since our interviews with Pete or Bernie, but obviously we had these interviews with Pete and Bernie that were incredibly viral. And then you've seen a lot more figures in left-wing media be incredibly outspoken about criticism of the administration, not Trump, but of the last administration, the Biden administration, and Democrats in general. And the criticisms that they're echoing are not dissimilar to the criticisms that maybe us and other people in the podcast space have been saying for maybe the last 4 years. Okay? Almost identical talking points. Us talking about Biden being old and inept and maybe unfit was seen as an extreme right-wing talking point. Now it is commonplace. Jake Tapper wrote a whole book about it. Right?
Insane, by the way.
The same, now, and again, we shouldn't be bitter. You got to let people get to places. But the same people that have tried to position us as some extreme right-wing and some of our colleagues as some extreme right-wing, the same people who have tried to position us in that way and spoke about this in that way are now echoing the exact talking points that we have made for 4 years. Does that make them extreme right-wing now?
Yeah.
Are they extreme right-wing
Yeah.
people? Like, or were we seeing something that they just missed?
I refuse to see.
Or refuse to see because of top-down influence? I don't know what exactly it is. But I think it's an interesting conversation to have. You see, I think left-wing media started to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, the Jake Tapper thing bothers me because it's so disingenuous. We've learned this since the election, really? So on November 5th, 6th, you learned all this and then had time to write a book by May? Like a full fucking book that went through edits and God knows what else. You had no idea at CNN that Joe Biden was incompetent and senile, and now you're finding it. It's just like such a load of horse shit. And then to position us as this, I know 2 of us didn't vote for Trump, at least. So we're not these guys that you want to make us. And it is annoying. I think it's more so when you're a minority, when it's like, don't make me that. I'm not your little mascot for right-wing anything. Fuck you. Or left-wing anything, but right-wing especially. You're not going to make me look like some sellout because you want to lie about your president's mental health and I don't.
Yeah, I think that now I think when you're in a position of power, which they thought that they were, and it's easy to like be wrapped up in your little echo chamber, you don't have to consider what people are feeling as much, or at least you think you don't. And then when you lose an election, there is self-reflection. for the smart people. It's very easy. A lot of people have lost the election. It's no different than like not getting passed at a comedy club, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, it's all their fault. It's nothing to do with me. And I think that you're seeing a lot of people in left-wing media and in smart people in left-wing media that are starting to go, hey, there are things that we can change. You know, like Ezra Klein wrote that book. I think Derek Thompson wrote this book, Abundance. And it's like criticisms of left-wing policies and how potentially it got us here. And they were rebuked by a lot of left-wing sources. And it's like, no. They're trying to call out the things that they believe will help their party.
Yeah.
And even that criticism, there's like this rejection.
Yeah.
But you're starting to see it, I don't know, I don't want to say like weaken, but you're starting to see people soften to this idea. And what's very interesting is I don't think at any point in time they're going to go, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have painted all those other people as this extreme line of thinking now that we have the exact same thoughts as them. There's no apology. There's no accountability. There's no nothing. So they have to deal, like Jake Tapper should deal with the criticism he's getting. Like
people within these political establishments will move slower in general than cultural critics.
Yes, of course.
Like comedians and a lot of like people in media and podcasters in general, like respond to culture and they're able to do it quickly and have less to lose.
Well, it just felt like the cultural critics are saying the same thing about us as a medium.
I see.
That's where I think I'm a little annoyed.
And I think you have every right to be annoyed, but like the advantage, I think, or the competitive advantage in terms of like understanding people that we might have is that we literally travel the country every single weekend. We go to liberal cities, conservative cities, neutral cities. We go every single weekend and we perform for these people. We talk to these people. So we start to get a good understanding of what people are frustrated by. That's different than like sitting in your Upper East Side office surrounded by a bunch of Ivy League kids who are just telling you that you're right. You know, and then calling up some consulting firm who's just going to be staffed by the exact Ivy League kids that aren't working for you. You're just talking to the same groups of people. So you're not actually talking to quote unquote real Americans. They're Americans too, of course, but you're not talking to a diverse group. And now that you're on board, it's interesting to see what happens. I actually think this is healthy. I think this is healthy because I think it like helps the party get a real understanding of who they potentially lost. And is it that you don't have a podcast, or is it that you're not talking to people outside of your echo chamber? And when you are talking to people outside your echo chamber, it's usually some gotcha shit like this interview with Tim. It's like you exit your echo chamber and the goal is to prove that that person is part of this like new mainstream media where everybody's trying to help each other and manipulate, you know, the country and its voters to go in a certain direction. No, it's not that.
And also Hollywood has been incredibly left of center for decades. How is that not more powerful than 6 guys with podcasts?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just easier to point the finger, right? You don't want to think that you did anything wrong. It's easier for California to be like, oh, but look at the podcast. That's what's causing this. Oh, no, maybe there's some policies there. Maybe you got some zoning laws that are making it very difficult to build housing. And because of that, you have this massive housing shortage. Maybe it's on you. Maybe it's on you in those zoning laws. And maybe that bureaucracy is making it difficult to build, whereas in other places it's not as difficult to build, and therefore there's more housing. And you can take that on the chin. You can go, hey, we should change this, because our people need us to do it so they can live better lives. Instead of going, podcasters are bros in the manosphere and they're sexist and bigots. It's like the oldest playbook in the world.
What makes me a little discouraged is my understanding is a lot of like the Democratic political consultants now are like, well, let's get a liberal podcast. And it's like, you guys really don't understand
They're throwing
what happened.
tens of millions of dollars. You had one. It was called the Joe Rogan Experience. And you threw them out.
And exactly to what you were saying earlier, we're not, most of us, I don't think are, very few of us are a party. We are just reflective of what people are feeling because we travel the country, especially the comedians, like you said. So that's just figure out what people are feeling and deal with that. And then we'll be happy. Hey, everybody I travel and talk to is happy as fuck. These guys are doing great. Like, instead of changing the policies, they're like, well, let's just throw money. Instead of throwing it at poor people who could use it, let's throw it at a podcaster. Like, what are you doing? You guys don't get it.